Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending our discussion today, Closing the Wealth Gap, a Business Case. I am honored to be joined today by the amazing Angel Rich, an author, advocate, and expert on Black history and financial literacy, two subjects that have come into sharp focus this month. I would like to start with a few administrative messages. First of all, we would love to hear from you while we're conducting this call, so please post any questions that you have in the chat and we'll address them as we see them. We'll be doing some polling later in the session, and so keep an eye out for that. You'll see that in the upper right-hand portion of your screen where it says polls. We also have some resources in the handout section and some that we'll be posting as we speak about them on the site here, so keep an eye out for those. And then also we'll be having the session for about 30 minutes today to be respectful of your time. And so there is a lot to the subject and we're going to dive right in. But of course, any follow-up that is needed, we're happy to answer any questions and get to know you better after this conversation. One other point is that Marcia Dyson did have a business emergency and is not able to join us on this call right now. However, we will be updating this webinar with a recording that we'll be sharing later today to include Marcia as well. So that will be a great addition to this. So keep posted for more information and maybe an even bigger and better session to follow later today as we move into the Juneteenth weekend. So with that, I would like to just dive straight into the subject matter. Inequity has been a subject of conversation due to some harsh realities that have been laid bare by the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, the recent acknowledgement nationally of the Tulsa Race Massacre and the attention to the development of Black Wall Street and the upcoming Juneteenth holiday this weekend that we hope and expect to see become a national holiday. With these events and public interest, while these have certainly helped build awareness on the subject of building racial equity, many organizations and institutions continue to struggle with how to appropriately integrate such celebrations and learning opportunities into their internal dialogue. And that's where this session comes to the fore. We really want to talk more about how do organizations really build awareness around these subjects. What is the business benefit to doing that? And what are some approaches that some companies, governments, institutions, and communities have used to help their populations move along this journey? So with that, I wanted to again introduce Angel, who is working with us on some educational content. My company, I'm Rajiv Narayana. I'm president and CEO of ansrsource, and we're a 20-year-old learning design and development company. And in recent years, we've heard a lot from our clients about a need for timely and relevant content. And this subject in particular is one that a lot of organizations are trying to figure out how to incorporate. And so I think the best way to get started with that is to ask Angel to share with us some of her recent experiences with Black Wall Street and a return to Black Wall Street, which is the name of the first course we've developed in this series, and share some of her experiences there, provide some historical context, and maybe bring us full circle back to what Black wealth means in today's context. So with that, Angel, I'll hand it over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rajiv. I'm very excited to be here, especially during the 100-year anniversary of the Tulsa Race Riot and approaching the anniversary of Juneteenth. Taking a moment to reflect on Black Wall Street, I was graciously invited recently to Tulsa by Angela Rye for a special that they were doing. And upon arriving there, as soon as I stepped off the plane, you could almost feel the history coming onto you as you hit the ground. From there, I then had the opportunity to meet with a lot of residents throughout the community and understand their understanding of Black Wall Street and how much of this history was hidden to the point that the residents of Tulsa was unaware of it themselves. So it gave me a deep passion to figure out how to share this information with other people. And I'm very excited to partner with you on putting together this gym. Black Wall Street in particular was a gathering of some of the wealthiest Black people in the country during the 1920s. It was originally founded by J.B. Stratford and O.W. Gurley, who had a vision to take a 40-block radius and only sell the properties within that radius to Black people. Greenwood Avenue in particular was the only street in the area that did not cross into the white neighborhoods, and it was majority based in the Black neighborhoods, so they could sort of build their own community. J.B. Stratford in particular owned Beach Hotel, which was the top Black hotel in the country, and had it not been destroyed, it would be akin to a Marriott or a W or something like that today. So on this particular day in May 1921, there was a gentleman by the name of Dick Rowland, and he was on an elevator with a lady named Sarah Page. While they were on the elevator, Sarah Page let out a scream. There are many different accounts as to why Sarah Page screamed. But either way, when she got off of the elevator and she was asked whether or not this man harmed her, there are accounts that say that she didn't say he harmed her, and there are accounts that say that she did say that he harmed her. Either way, an article then went out to say, nab the Negro that harmed the white lady. They then put him inside of the courtroom and they were attempting to lynch him. After that, about 75 Black residents decided that they weren't going to stand for it because this man had did nothing wrong and he was simply using a colored bathroom in this particular building, and Sarah Page was the elevator operator. So from there, they decided to go to the courthouse armed with guns to be able to have him freed of this lynching. They were successful in that. However, the police didn't quite like that approach, and they then started arming the community white men to go after the Black people into their homes and businesses and communities of Greenwood. The Black people expected, just like in prior times, that once they reached the tracks, that they would sort of dissipate and not really come into their community. However, I guess having such a showcasing of so many armed Black people really bothered them, and they wanted to make it known that that would not be tolerated. So they then went and started pretty much killing any Black person that they saw and burned the entire community to the ground. I personally walked down the street recently, and when you are situated and can see the geography of all of these different sort of historical facts, it is very easy to see how they were able to exit out of City Hall, cross over this bridge, go down into Greenwood, and then enter into their community. It's a very short radius. From there, I also stood over top of the Cotton Gin plaque, where an overpass freeway now runs through where Beach Hotel once stood, the top Black hotel in the country. It was a very emotional experience for me when I realized what I was standing in the middle of. I have chills right now talking about it. Some of the greatest Black wealth was erected in that spot. You could see that the Cotton Club plaque was on the ground. The Beach Hotel was to the left of it, and diagonally straight across was the Mount Vernon AME Church. So this is literally the heart of Black wealth, and they ran a highway through it. And so I ended up sitting there for about 30 minutes because it is really disheartening what has happened to our Black wealth. And we must come together to understand the history of this so that we can understand from an economic and corporate perspective how to move forward in unification, leveraging financial agriculture.
Personal experience combined with the history are very significant for a number of us. I know a lot of people are struggling to understand the context of this. Has been a long time since people have really talked about it in the public sphere at large. And I know that earlier this month, the media coverage was more than I've ever seen of this event. And, the personal accounts that we've heard have really brought it, into the dialogue. but I know that a number of organizations are struggling, both at the academic level and at the corporate level to talk about this. It's a sensitive subject. It's something that, for many of us is relatively new, or at least some of the, full history and context is relatively new. And it has implications for populations within our organizations. And so, the question that I have for you, and something that I think the audience here is here to think about, is, what's an appropriate way for us to get started thinking about this, whether it's a government institution or a school or a university. I mean, the subject matter is the same, but the audiences are very different and our roles in society are very different. So I'm curious, how you think that some of us can begin our journey to really understand the context of this and what it means for us today.
Yeah, that's something I'm actually very passionate about. I'm very proud to be the author of the first ever African American financial experience study conducted by Prudential Financial. It was the first time we ever analyzed the financial behaviors of Blacks to unearth much of their financial behavior and future. We were actually able to prove in that study that Blacks own life insurance at an equal or higher value than other races, as well as small business was the growth engine of the community, and they were more likely to trust a church to receive their financial education than any other source. We also found that 78% of Black Americans do not trust the financial services industry. Therefore, this is not necessarily a philanthropic initiative or nice to have or just a great federal holiday to celebrate. This is an actual business imperative where you have 78% of your potential consumers, a 1.6 trillion buying power, not trusting the information that you are providing. So imagine what you would be able to sell if they did trust you. I'm gonna pause there and let that sink in to all the corporates that are watching today. And I think I had a gentleman say to me, think about what the music industry would look like if there weren't Black people in it. It would not be the same as what it is today. And many people need to think about that when it comes to business and tech and finance and making sure that products are properly adopted, that we're not just pushing for savings accounts, but we're also pushing for life insurance and annuities and credit cards and wealth building and estate planning and all of these various different products that if the research was there to be able to market to the African American community, you would be able to make those sales a lot easier. It would also be able to equip the financial advisors that are going out into the community looking to make these sales directly in the community. They won't have to spend as much time trying to educate the consumer on why it's important if these products are already being marketed to them. Once we were able to prove that Blacks own life insurance at an equal or higher value, suddenly, beautifully, we now have Blacks in life insurance commercials and financial services commercials all across the country. So it is really critical for all organizations, regardless of what product that they are working with, to take a step back to be able to figure this out from an advertisement and marketing perspective. Then you also have it from an employee wellness perspective. Why wouldn't you want your employees to be the best and whole selves that they can be? Why wouldn't you want them to feel like you have adopted them into the culture and they've been able to assimilate appropriately, where they are not walking around as a half person or feeling as though they can only bring half of their ideas to the table? That very idea that they might be leaving at home might be the next thing to make your company another $1 billion. And they should have the freedom to be able to express these ideas. Additionally, why wouldn't we want to increase wealth and home ownership and credit management and all of these various different things around our employees? We know that finance tends to be the biggest stressor of people, and the stress tends to be the biggest thing to harm people's life. So if we are able to help them with their finances, then this will ultimately reduce their overall stress and ultimately make them more productive employees. Then thirdly, this brings me to the schools. One of the big reasons that we see such an increase in violence across our country is a lack of empathy. And I often like to think about the diary of Anne Frank. We often feel great sympathy and empathy towards the Jewish community because we have grown up across America having this book mandated where we thoroughly understand their journey. And this was a situation that happened 4 years in another country. Where is the book of a child slave or Jim Crow era or anything like that that depicts the 400 years that helped shape our country? And so until we have these educational lessons and are all reading from the same book, we can never be on the same page to have empathy and sympathy for one another.
Point of talking about how to really understand racial equity and diversity, we have to understand, the different groups that embody that. And so a big problem, that we tend to have is that we don't dive deep into really understanding the people inside of our organizations that make up our communities, that make up our consumer base, to really get to know what they've been through and how to interact appropriately and celebrate holidays together and remember together, and so that we can all align in how we operate. So with that, I wanted to pause and post a poll question. I see some people have already answered it, but how likely is your organization to adopt Black history courses? That poll is in the, again, upper right section of your screen. Please take a moment to fill that out. We'll be interested to speak to that in just a moment. But one thing I did want to point out is, the reason that diversity and inclusiveness training programs tend to fail, the studies show that, one, there's not much reinforcement of it, but that is, I guess, a symptom of how these trainings are developed in the first place, which is they're developed in a traditional format. They're generally given to a population of people who have to take them at that moment, and they may or may not have an impetus to learn from those experiences at that moment. And so when you look at that as the problem, the solution is to meet people where they are. When somebody encounters a situation that forces them to think about equity and what it really means in their professional or personal context, that's when they need to get learning on the subject. And so, Angel, I know that you have worked, quite a bit in recent years, throughout your career, actually, in trying to promote financial literacy. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that in particular. And then maybe after that, we can come back to the polling question and then talk a little bit more about the educational approaches that we're exploring.
Yes, I think both are so critical, and you're dead on about the reinforcement of these materials inside the organization. I actually used to be the one of the co-chairs of the Black Leadership Forum at my former company, so I know exactly how these employee resource groups operate. And I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of different corporations recently that are coming to me for advice on this Black Lives Matter movement. And what I've been repeating to everybody is, do not check the box. The days of just checking the box are over. The days of saying that you just hosted a panel and you brought in this Black expert from XYZ and, you did this one thing for Black History Month and then you did this another thing for Juneteenth, those days are over. People are starting to get called out. I'm on a couple of boards that I will say privately, we are starting to go after mandating diversity metrics to be able to see how much money you are actually spending with Black vendors and how much money you are actually using with how many employees you're hiring of color, as well as sort of these sustainable goals that Rajiv are mentioning with financial literacy. How much are you actually putting into the financial wellness of your employees? It's almost a crime to have an employee spend 50 to 70 hours a week working on your organization. Where do they then have the time to be able to advance themselves financially? That really should be the responsibility of the company. And I've never understood why that was not the case. And so that is what drives me each day when I see these people sort of giving their lives to these corporations. And then when it comes time to buy a home, they go work for a financial services company and they're still struggling to increase their credit score or be able to get approved for a loan. You might have an organization give 10% discount on some car insurance or something like that, but that's not truly giving them financial management. So in the same sense that we have health management and health and wellness, we should have financial health and wellness and wealth management in that same sort of platform so that you are able to truly advance with your life. So when you are taking a look at this, you do need to be able to meet people where you are. So I'm really excited that we've broken this down into these 10-minute granular education modules where we've taken the Wealthy Life Financial Literacy textbook as well as the History of the Black Dollar book, and we've broken them down into these 10-minute modules. So even if you only have, a few minutes on your lunch break, you're able to get these modules in and complete them. And more importantly, they're easily incentivizable for your employees and coworkers, where you can say, hey, for the next upcoming town hall or for the next upcoming BRG meeting, Black Resource Group, whatever, you can say, watch this gym. You can do that across the entire company, where you send the gym out and say, hey, this is intro to credit. And then you could send a 3-question assessment to see if they actually learned from it and completed it, and then be able to receive some type of credit. Maybe you all can even create a financial wellness program where you increase the match that they give for their 401k based on how many of these gyms they're able to complete. I know at my former company, we used to have these weight loss challenges, and they would give out cash bonuses based on how many people lost weight, because they wanted us to be healthier, because they realized if we were healthier, we would be more productive. So the same goes for your wealth. If you are wealthier and you have more of a handle on your finances, you are definitely going to be more productive at work.
Very well taken. And just to add to what Angel was saying about the format, at ansrsource, we have been developing content with our partners since the dawn of the digital evolution of education. And what we found is that there have been a lot of different platforms, a lot of different technologies, a lot of different methodologies for learning deployed over the years. But the thing that tends to work time and time again is meeting people where they are, both in terms of their time constraints, their interest levels, and their ability to invest in learning. And more we're seeing, especially with our children, but also with the rest of us, that we're taking opportunities to learn whenever we have a few minutes, when we have a driver that's causing us to want to learn. And so the whole granular education module experience that we've developed is based on the understanding that human beings are not impatient. We're just practical. And learning is innate, and we want to learn, but we want to learn what we want to learn about when something creates a need within us. And so when we think about timely and relevant learning, this month, Black history has come into focus. A lot of people are curious. A lot of people are looking for this. And when we look at our website alone, just talking about Juneteenth and the number of people that are coming and are interested and are wanting to learn, it's been a tremendous amount of people. So our model of being timely and relevant and having shorter learning experiences that are not short for the sake of being short, but that are short because we want to respect people's time, and we know how much time they tend to have to invest in it. And we know people are coming at the learning with different types of experience. And so they may want to learn about one topic over another. So the learning cannot be long form. It has to be nonlinear and modular so people can learn when they want to learn. And so with this subject area, we wanted to put out something quickly with our high quality standards. And that's why we partnered with Angel. In the last 10 days, we were able to launch the first course, and we expect to have a number of them coming, because Angel is actually impatient. Just joking. Only partly joking. But she's got a big agenda and a lot to talk about and a lot of experience. And the perspective of financial literacy and the development of wealth as a priority for thriving in the community is something that we're very well aligned with. So we're excited to present that to you. And with that, I wanted to put the last polling question out there for you. I posted to the chat the results of the first poll, and that was that the majority of people said that they would be very likely or somewhat likely to adopt a course in their organization. But we also wanted to ask Now that you've heard some of this context and history, how likely would you be to recommend that your organization adopt such courses? Because really it's employee and community advocacy that makes a difference these days. The interesting thing that I've seen in my lifetime is a number of organizations are starting to really listen to the communities, to their consumers, and to their employees. And a lot of change is being driven from the bottom up. And so we were just curious how many people thought that they would recommend this. And in our preliminary responses, 100% of you said you would. So I think, Angel, we've done our job.
Hey, I like the sound of that. You know, anybody that knows me knows that I'm genuinely passionate about this. This is something that I strongly feel as though corporations really do need to adopt. Again, not from a philanthropic perspective, but from a business perspective. And these aren't, while Rajiv has mentioned that they are short in nature, but they are not short in quality. You know, even with the Black Wall Street one, that was a week of me on the ground going through Tulsa. So you're getting actual footage taken from my camera while we are explaining different subject matters. And so it is extremely dense with information for you to be able to receive, but present it in a very light and easy format for you to be able to go through in 10 minutes. So you're getting the best of both worlds with something that is high quality, but streamlined for the benefit of your viewing at the same time. So we definitely look forward to working with each of you and bringing this to your corporation.
And thank you to everybody who attended. To learn more about this, we'd love to hear from you, your feedback, and to correspond with you about how to bring Black history into your organization. And as you can see on the screen, we have a link to enrolling in the Black Wall Street Forever GEM, and then there's an associated book with it that you can also bundle with that experience. And then I just wanted to end, Angel, with a note about Juneteenth this weekend. I know a lot of people are trying to understand the holiday a little bit better and start to participate in celebrating it. I wanted to ask if you had any thoughts on that for both organizations and individuals who are trying to think about, how do I begin to celebrate this holiday that is really starting to come into prominence in this country?
Yeah, I want people to start to think about Juneteenth in the way that they think about 4th of July. So 4th of July is a celebration of American Revolution. And I kind of like to think of Juneteenth as a celebration of Black Revolution, where essentially it was the last of the slaves that were freed. Many people don't know that before the Emancipation Proclamation, the slaves of DC, where I'm from, were actually freed a year earlier. Then you had the Emancipation Proclamation. Then you had a group of about 2,000 people down in Texas who quite weren't told that slavery had ended. And once they finally found out, of course, they were very jubilant. And that is how we have the catalyst for Juneteenth. And so the celebration of those last slaves. So just because it's Juneteenth does not mean that we have to focus on slavery. Just like with 4th of July does not mean that we have to focus on the American Revolution. It is a celebration of our country. And so Juneteenth is a celebration of our culture. And with this year being the 100th anniversary of Black Wall Street, of course, it was just proper for us to speak on that, as well as potentially reparations will be a big subject later this year with the Congressional Black Caucus. So it is good for people to kind of think of this holiday as a way to celebrate Black culture. So whatever that means to you, you want to go have a cookout in the park. If you would like to purchase History of the Black Dollar in the gym so that you can get yourself acquainted with more information, if you want to host a big lavish dinner with all your friends and family and be thankful that you guys are together, whatever it means to you. But definitely for corporations and schools, this is an opportunity for learning. This is an opportunity for you to be able to leverage this, to bring the coworkers, your families, your students, and bring everybody together. So once again, we are reading from the same book so we can be on the same page.
Fantastic. Angel, thank you so much. And thank you to the audience. And we look forward to connecting with you shortly after this call. And have a wonderful Juneteenth weekend.
Absolutely. Thank you.